Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Paul here, coming at you with a Crypto Coffee update, starting off the week right with all the news, events, conferences, happenings, and other nice things that you want to see in the financial technology space and beyond. And of course, to help us with the exuberant amount of energy starting off the week right, I got my coffee. So join me for that simultaneous sip. Awesome stuff. All right, so we have Cryptide.cc open before you, our lovely website. Check us out when you can. You'll see all the information we're covering here today and even more. And perhaps one of the things I'm most proud of at the moment is the next week's crypto. I gather up all the crypto conferences all around the world, homogenize them into one easily accessible and well-sourced list, which is honestly something I don't see anywhere else in the crypto space. But if you know of an aggregation source, let me know below in the comments. After all, sharing is caring, and I'm always trying to get those wonderful primary sources to give you guys more information. Again, Cryptide.cc, check us out. But now for your featured presentation, QuadrigaCX, man, I don't know if it's a debacle. It's definitely a drama. If anything, it is for sure a drama. Essentially, these cold wallets for the now defunct cryptocurrency exchange have been empty since April. CEO of Coinbase is raising some eyebrows, and Kraken has announced $100,000 for anyone who has information that can lead to some more divulgence as to what's going on with these wallets. So essentially, for those of you who want to get up to speed, QuadrigaCX, the CEO, Gerald Cotton, he traveled to India and unfortunately, allegedly, passed away while he was over there due to some complications with Crohn's disease. This left $130 million in cold storage and funds all around various wallets, essentially locked down because upon this individual's untimely demise, it was revealed that he was the sole proprietor of the information necessary to gain access to this $130 million litany of various wallets. So that's not good. It's the understatement of the year. So essentially now all these individuals, Canadian authorities specifically, have been digging through the records trying to find out who is what is where with these wallets, and hopefully find some individuals who have the ability to access them in order to do right by the creditors and give them recompense in the event of this unfortunate circumstance. Now, as said, Kraken is offering $100,000 for any information to individuals who can determine the whereabouts of these lost funds. This happened on February 28th. No information yet. Still waiting, seeing how individuals are handling, sifting through all of this. And Ernst & Young is on the case. This is a huge research firm, so they've taken an interest in this case specifically, are working through a lot of the information to try and come to their own conclusions. So we have a lot of great minds, great institutions trying to find out what the heck is going on. But as said, the main meat of the matter for the day is these wallets, apparently, some of them have been empty since April, which is just strange. It doesn't run concurrent with the stories a lot of the times, considering that assumingly you'd want to maintain some level of consistency in your finances and not switch cold wallets every few months. Maybe that is best industry practice. Maybe it's a unique practice from Quadriga. Who knows? I'm not actually a security specialist that can delve into the best in practice for exchange security, but I do have an amateur understanding of it, and this doesn't seem like this would be something that they would do quite regularly. Maybe it's just a coincidence in terms of it happened to fall around the time of the CEO's untimely death, or maybe there's more to it. As said, we don't have definitive information yet, so we could speculate all day, but one thing's for sure, people are raising eyebrows, tips are being offered for individuals who have more information, and some of these wallets are indeed empty. Weird stuff. We'll keep you up to date as we move forward. Coinhive is a service, or was a service now, that essentially offered in-browser mining, mostly for Monero and a few others. I personally have never used it myself, and I guess I'll never get the chance to, since due to the downturn in the Monero market, as you can see, depreciating 85%, Coinhive is now discontinuing their service. However, while this knocked them down, it wasn't the finishing blow. The finishing blow was the Monero hard fork. We talked about that in a previous Crypto Coffee update. Monero is, to some, notorious, to some, very well known for forking away, using a hard fork mechanism to move away from ASIC miners, which are those machines that sound like jet planes and mine cryptocurrency extremely efficiently when compared to your home computer. Now, this has some benefits and some detriments. It means more hashing power for the network. Great, that means our network is stronger. But at what price? Most of the time, specific individuals, maybe individuals who own large mining companies like Bitmain, they're the ones who build these ASIC miners, and a lot of the time they have comparative advantage and competitive advantage given that they build these things first, meaning some relative centralization of mining interests. So fewer people with stronger machines on the network. And this has led to a kind of contention. Some individuals say, hey, that's good for the network, let them on. Other networks say, not so fast, chief. And that's exactly what Monero said. They said, we don't want ASICs on our network, so we're going to hard fork away from them. And this has led to some very interesting developments for underlying services that are built with these cryptocurrency projects in mind. I believe Ethereum calls the group that controls the code and the development benevolent dictators. Take that for what you will, but it's definitely interesting to see how these developments affected the underlying companies. Now, Coinhive did have a bit of a bad rap for allowing individuals, sometimes nefarious individuals, to launch this software onto other users' computers and in turn use their computers to mine Monero on their behalf, a lot of the time without their knowledge. So while this is great news for some individuals who just have a bad taste in terms of Coinhive, for other individuals who are using this in an honest way, well, it's definitely something that maybe leaves them with a bit of sadness, a bit of regret, but hey, this is how the market functions, and it's really interesting to observe. All right, next up we have Malta. Malta. Baby, you got to get your affairs in order. Malta has essentially become the blockchain island, as we've discussed many times before. However, they've run into a bit of a snag. While judicially everything is hunky-dory and everyone's happy, you can set up your cryptocurrency and blockchain stuff on the island of Malta with very little friction relative to other options. It seems as though the banks are not so gung-ho about this kind of movement. We've talked before about the Malta Financial Services Authority, or MFSA, just trying to keep their heads above water, only instead of liquid, it's just a bunch of paperwork, since, they're built to be about the size of Malta. Now that they've shifted over to being Blockchain Island, they are buried in mounds of paperwork trying to suss through all these new businesses. So I feel for the people who work for the MFSA, as someone who's worked with paperwork before. Having an unnecessary and unexpected deluge of extra work is not always welcome, even if it is best for the long term. However, that's not the meat of the matter. The main focus here today is that cryptocurrency, as in terms of terminology, and blockchain as a term have different implications for the banks. This is a very interesting development because the banks are separate from Malta, and being in the Eurozone, European Union conglomerate, Frankenstein, confederated thing. Essentially, the banks have ties to Europe very heavily, and they're very skeptical and speculative as to how to issue this kind of credit and services to blockchain and cryptocurrency projects. So even though the judiciary says you're good to go, the banking system, which is privatized, says maybe. We're not so sure yet. Seemingly, if you say you are a cryptocurrency project, banks are much less likely to accept you compared to if you were to say I'm a blockchain project. So it seems that there is a bit of maybe misunderstanding or maybe more reasonable understanding in terms of risk profile relative to cryptocurrency and blockchain. While the two aren't intrinsically mutually related, generally they have overlap in a lot of their functionality in use of terms, depending on how the system is built. So it makes sense that banks, they don't want to take on this risk appetite, especially if it's in one geographic location. That could lead to some discrepancies in risk profile, right? So this is a good move for the banks, but not so good of a move for Malta, not so good of a move for the blockchain projects per se, but ultimately this will potentially, I assume, be something that comes out in the wash, given there's huge amounts of money to be made on all sides. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward. Now, Ledger has had a bit of a issue recently. Not only was there an issue with the user sending some Monero that went awry that occurred this morning, still watching that story develop, so didn't want to report on it yet, but we'll keep you up to date on that. But one thing we're confirmed about is that the Ledger Nano S software had some issues with some testing. Apparently, after the new firmware was launched, the amount of storage space decreased. So ultimately, you couldn't even hold BTC, ETH, and XRP apps at the same time, meaning that it was very limited in terms of its functionality for a short period of time. Users were not happy about that, and some were saying this is a move in planned obsolescence. This is a shift where they're trying to move away from the Nano Ledger S and apparently get ready for their new Nano wallet, Nano X, which you could see here. And while this is something that Ledger has vehemently denied, they said we would never do that to our users. It is kind of strange that such a large and prolific institution such as Ledger that focuses on these hardware wallets would make such a seemingly amateurish mistake, even considering that, they got to test these things. They got to ensure that they're ready for prime time. You can release the firmware, there won't be any critical issues or bugs. So they assumingly knew that this would occur when they released the update. So really no clear way to know in concrete reality whether or not For sure, this was a part of planned obsolescence, or perhaps maybe this really was just an oversight on the part of Ledger. But suffice to say, users were not happy, and now we have a fix. So that's really cool. It just goes to show you have that social democracy, especially in a smaller space here in crypto. Small for now, especially because of the bear market. But just goes to show you can reach out, you can make your voice heard, and ultimately, if enough people reach out and make their collective voices heard, you can see real change happen in real time. All right, next up we have some interesting developments. Oh, also, if you hear any background noise, there's construction going on in the street outside, so just a heads up. You get to feel like you're in the real world of Paul with construction and all. All right, so major U.S. retailer is ditching Visa, and apparently some individuals are saying they can move over to Lightning Network. Just as a disclaimer, that's not happening. It will not happen, at least in the next 2 to 3 years, and I'll tell you exactly why here momentarily, but let's look at some of the details to kind of set the stage of the story. The U.S. retail giant Kroger is no longer accepting Visa cards at some of its Smith's food and drug stores, so assumingly a subsidiary entity. The individual who tweeted the offer with Lightning Network was Anthony Pompliano, a gentleman who I have admiration for. Dude's a great marketer, has a great head on his shoulders, and is really always making moves, it seems. Excuse me. So essentially, Pompliano reached out, said, hey, let's make this meeting happen. Here you can see a clip. Hey, let's make it happen. DM inbound to Pomp. This is an individual who's a product manager at Kroger Digital and can confirm that this is indeed occurring. So here is assumingly, if you were just to look at face value, a great introduction that just occurred. Potentially, we can use some layer 2 Bitcoin technology to settle payments at a real grocer in the United States. That would be fantastic. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for innovation. That's exactly what we want to see here. However, there are some technical difficulties associated with implementing Lightning Network for such a situation at present. Essentially, this is from 2018. It's an analysis of Lightning Network's routing problems reported by DIAR or DR Research. You can't use the Lightning Network yet. It just doesn't work. If you want to send a couple pennies, fantastic. You want to set up this hardware, great. Good for you. Go participate in the beta test. That's great. But in terms of actual market applicability, Lightning Network is a dud. Essentially, if you want to you want to send $200, you have a 1% chance of sending it. Even if we just inflate those numbers insanely and say, well, maybe in 6 months they've solved all these problems and the potential for $200 is 10%. How many people buy $200 worth of groceries for the week? A good amount. Inflation's a real thing, especially in this clunky fiat currency system. So when you're trying to send $200 to your grocer, well, if you get that stuck along the way and that just gets stuck in a channel, you got to wait for that to time out. Sorry, you're just kind of sitting there playing on your phone, twiddling your thumbs while you're standing at the checkout line. That does not sound fun. Now, conversely, a few dollars, you want to buy a pack of gum, you want to buy some beer, go for it. 70% chance. Maybe you get lucky, but you're still going to have a couple times where you're just kind of standing around waiting for this payment to confirm or time out so you can try and send it again. So extremely suboptimal and not the type of solution you would want to see for your grocer. I'd prefer to see something like Smart Cash. Smart Cash has the payment card. They have particularly nodes that handle the payment, so it's instantaneous processing, and it has comparatively low fees relative to Visa and MasterCard. So that's a legitimate use case. It's really great. However, Lightning Network, being that it's built upon the layer 1 Bitcoin chain and is a layer 2 solution, it's just not there yet, and that's unfortunate to a large degree since I'm a fan of Lightning Network. If it works, fantastic, and it's exactly what we need. However, it doesn't seem that this is the kind of thing that is coming anytime soon, and that's clear from this individual here with the What Bitcoin Did podcast. David Sherris has the actual clip itself. But this individual is saying hey, look, we are years away. And basically, there is no point in time in the future. We're not planning to have a period of time where you can't send a payment if you're not online. You got to have your Lightning wallet. You have to send a payment first to receive a payment. So if I want to pay my grocer has to pay me, and then I have to pay them back and then pay the difference. So it gets complicated, right? So if $200 in groceries, I have a 1% chance of routing it anyway. You got to send me a couple dollars or a couple cents to open up the channel, and then I got to pay that back, assumingly to accept the balance and then send them through the actual capital. So there is some budgeting that has to go on if you want to even use the network. So you can see that the complications get very complicated very fast, and the UX will get there, but it needs years. This is a far cry from the 18 months away, and it has been 18 months for years. 3 years ago, here is a tweet talking from Elizabeth Stark that not 1 year away, we're working for release in 6 months. So 6 months, 3 years ago, and it's been 18 months constantly. I'm not trying to knock Lightning Network or the hard work that Elizabeth Stark and these other individuals are doing. I mean, they are some fantastic minds, and they're working a lot more efficiently than I ever could. given that it's not my area of speciality. This is my area of speciality. And as somebody who's on the outside looking in, I gotta say, hearing 18 months constantly for years now, going on half a decade, it's not funny anymore. It's been too long, and realistically, if there's other solutions, there's other solutions, and that's great. But the obsession, almost the religious fervor surrounding Lightning Network and how it's going to be the Noah's Ark to help depress transaction fees and help out businesses like Kroger, and they could do it now, it's not ready. And it's not going to be ready anytime soon, and propagating information like this, saying, oh man, they're going to use the Lightning Network, it's happening, it's a lot of the times dangerous to a degree, since it gives outside individuals the understanding that this kind of technology is ready for prime time. And frankly, if it's not, that's really embarrassing for any individual who assumes that, hey, this is ready, let me go propagate this information out to my friends, my family, my own business perhaps. That's not exactly the kind of position you want to be in per se. So Bitcoin's fantastic. I'm excited about the Lightning Network, but it's been years, frankly, and it's not prime time yet. When will it be? Who knows? But this whole beating of the drum for Lightning Network, maybe we should stop hitting the drum as hard as possible and maybe have light taps until it's really, truly ready for prime time. So we'll keep an eye on this going forward, as we have for years and years now, waiting for the Lightning Network to finally strike and hear that clasp of financial thunder that follows suit. Now, here is a clasp of financial thunder that definitely has a lot of fallout in terms of toxic rain, and that is the fact that Coinbase has indeed been selling your user data before they even partnered with Neutrino. So don't worry, you have nothing to worry about. We're not going to sell your data starting now. Don't worry. We've been selling your data this whole time. So it's fine. It's fine. But realistically, Ryan Selkis, an individual CEO of Masari, he had a really good, dispassionate write-up saying a lot of this is kind of tit for tat. Coinbase really needed access to these kind of services, and the only way that they could do it was by divulging their users' information. Whether or not there's any legitimacy to that is yet to be seen, but it was a much more tempered piece. There was a lot of hype and fear surrounding this story in particular, especially given the context and circumstances. After all, hacking team, murder of journalists, terrorist, rogue regimes worldwide, not the kind of thing you want associated with your peer-to-peer digital currency in which a lot of transactions are potentially auditable. But realistically, this story is still unfolding. Here's the actual article from Cheddar. I always expect to see the Chuck E. Cheese logo here next to Cheddar. But yeah, essentially this is the, what is she exactly? She's the head of something over at Coinbase, head of sales. And essentially she said, yeah, the compelling reason to make this acquisition is they have really great technology, they're a leader in the space. But ultimately, it was important for us to migrate away from our current providers, saying that essentially they were selling client data outside sources, and it was compelling for us to get control over that and have proprietary technology that we could leverage to keep the data safe and protect our clients. So as said, maybe this is something that was completely necessary on the part of Coinbase in order to gain access to the individual entities that were handling this data in the first place. So maybe it was kind of a bootstrapping mechanism. But suffice to say, it's not a good look, especially in light of the Neutrino acquisition. We talked about that last Crypto Coffee update, so if you want to get fully up to speed on that story, check that one out. However, for the sake of brevity, let's just say this was definitely a gaffe, at least in terms of PR. Could have been handled a lot better. And it's almost kind of like saying, hey, don't worry, we shot ourselves in the foot. All we have to do is amputate the leg. Not a good look for Coinbase. But ultimately, with coffers like that, maybe they can survive that image blow. But with a hashtag delete Coinbase trending still, it'll be a sight to see. We'll keep you up to date on all things happening with Coinbase and this Neutrino story going forward. Now, where might you want to get your Bitcoin if you don't want to use Coinbase? Maybe you're saying, Paul, give me some action steps, buddy. I'm worried. All right, no worries. I got you here. Bitcoin.org. This is not financial advice, of course. This is just a list of things that I pulled from the internet from a prolific Bitcoin website. And this is a great one-stop shop. It comes from the New User's Guide. Download Discord if you want. Hop on the Cryptide Discord. We have what's called a New User's Guide. I've aggregated tons and tons and tons of resources that could potentially be a benefit to you. You want to learn about exchanges? One-stop shop. You want to learn about what's the difference between these coins? One-stop shop. After all, that's what I do. I aggregate information. So let's take a look at this nice aggregation. Here's an international list. Coinbase, there they are. CoinMama, Kraken, peer-to-peer, Paxful, local Bitcoins. Peer-to-peer is just, as said, like local Bitcoins. You can just meet up with somebody in exchange. Be safe if you're going to do that. And here, all around Asia, all around Europe, all around Africa even, North America. Notice how Canada no longer has QuadrigaCX listed, wonder why. South America, Australia, New Zealand. So yeah, there are plenty of places that you can use your fiat currency to buy Bitcoin and other crypto assets if you so choose. It's all up to you. Again, not financial advice, just options in the marketplace, which is really what we're here for. The exciting developments that occur in terms of free market choice for individuals all around the world. Financially empowering, that's for sure. Now, one last thing to touch on. This is just an interesting little tidbit that I found particularly cool. This is Hive.one. It aggregates all kinds of crypto influencers. So you can see here's Mr. Andreas Antonopoulos, Vitalik, Nick Zabo. I can never know how to pronounce your last name, Nick. Eric Voorhees, Adam Back, Elizabeth Stark, we just talked about her. Peter Todd, Jameson Lopp, Zuku, Gavin Anderson. All these people are huge crypto influencers, or people who have a lot of great thoughts about the space and are technically minded and generally produce really good content. So this is a fantastic one-stop shop. If you want to get a group of individuals, you want to beef up your Twitter following and start getting nice inflows of information that you too can dig through, this is a great place to do so. And you can tailor fit that as you so choose. So with that said, that's all we have on the agenda for the day. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It is my pleasure. Happy Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend and a productive beginning to your week. Looking forward to some more great information and developments that we'll keep you up to date on. But for now, my name is Paul, signing off. We are Cryptide, and remember, the tide is rising, as is your Twitter account too. Look at this information. Wonderful.